You has now come to an end, and after 5 seasons, the conclusion of the final episode is one that seemed to be divisive. With a multitude of love interests over the years, the range of emotions that we were made to feel towards Joe Goldberg being wide and varied, and the many murder victims that he racked up over the 50 episodes going well into the double digits. In my opinion, the seasons definitely alternated in quality. So with that, I thought it would be worth ranking each season of the show and sharing which one I thought was the worst and which one was the best. And I will say it has changed quite a bit since my last ranking. So let's get into it. Here is every season of You ranked. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. Number 5, Season 4. The season that I felt was the worst in the entirety of the show was Season 4, the penultimate one. There were many things that I feel made it fall below par for me, and one of those was the fact that as it was being released, the season was split into 2 parts, which meant that we had to wait a month for the second batch of episodes. The disruption to the pacing and rhythm of the story, despite being left on a cliffhanger, was something that I found frustrating and also quite jarring. As the season was playing out, there were parts of the story that I thought were interesting, especially with Rhys Montrose being inside of Joe's mind and it all being part of his imagination. But the sheer amount of kills that he carried out just felt a little bit ridiculous. And I'd also say when it came to the love interest in this season, Kate just wasn't that likable. I would say she was more tolerable in Season 5, but she just seemed the least like Joe's type when they first met. I also think the wider cast in this season were the least likable too. I didn't really latch onto any of them like I did in the previous seasons, with the likes of Delilah, Claudia, Forty, Ellie, and Paco. This season didn't have any real equivalents, and I think that made a big difference. I also thought Joe killing Eddie so that he could frame Nadia was one of the most evil things that the character has ever done, and I feel like it kind of went against what Joe originally killed for. He always either killed for love, or he killed because he was ridding the world of a bad person, and in this instance, he killed somebody that was genuinely innocent in all of it, so I wasn't a large fan of that. I would have got it more if it moved the character forward in a different direction, but it didn't even really do that. Although this season is in 4th place, I would say that it's still a good installment of the show and an enjoyable piece of television. It's just my least favourite of them all. Number 4, Season 5. Coming in 4th place, which did surprise me as I was making this video, was the most recent season of the show, Season 5. I did really enjoy the final season, but when compared to the 3 others that were before it, it did just fall short. There were elements that I did really like about this season, such as the split in tone with the first few episodes feeling like an original season, with Joe getting besotted with a new love interest, and us seeing him going back to killing for love whilst being back in New York City where the whole story began, to it then shifting to the polar opposite with Joe being caught carrying out a murder. But then, as time went on, it just started to become a little less believable. For example, it felt like the original Joe wouldn't have been fooled twice by the same person like he was with Louise. Plus, he was quite literally caught murdering somebody and was able to get away with it, even with there also being other people that were claiming that he was involved in harming them. So I don't know why he wasn't properly looked into after that. I was a fan of the penultimate episode, with it seeming like Joe was going to die in the basement of Mooney's as the bookstore which started it all burned to the ground. But I would say that I also did like the fact that Joe ended up in prison, alone, living in his own version of hell, which was his worst nightmare. It felt quite fitting, but there were just elements of this season that felt like the story was just exaggerated a bit too much and went beyond the realm of what we were used to. Plus, Louise wasn't the most interesting love interest either. I'm glad he got his comeuppance, but I think it could have probably been just a little bit better overall. Number 3, Season 1. In 3rd place, we've got the season that started the entire journey. I think this season is great for a number of different reasons. Season 1 was where we were first introduced to Joe Goldberg, and we saw just how psychotic he could be. I think this was where we got some of Penn Badgley's best performances as the character. I say this because it was fresh and we were learning about the character along with the people that he was meeting and manipulating. We saw his descent into darkness after being lured into this sense of security that he made us feel. This almost felt like peak You, Mooney's, New York City, Guinevere Beck, Paco, and Benji. There were so many iconic characters that lasted long in the memory all the way up until around 7 years later. Joe's love for Beck was the strongest that we saw in the entirety of the show, and I feel the tension, panic, and fear in this season when Beck found the box of Joe's murder souvenirs was some of the show's finest. We were rooting for Beck the entirety of the time, and when we saw Joe being successful in murdering her, it was the first time we were made to feel uncomfortable due to the conflict in our mind about him, and it brought to light how the love that he had could be weaponized and proved to be damaging for those that were on the receiving end of it. The empathetic side that we saw in Joe with him looking out for Paco felt like something that was vital when it came to making us feel something towards Joe, and him not just simply being this evil monster that lurks in the dark. So the human side that we saw within him was something that I thought was also good when it came to building the character. I also think that this season had a great cliffhanger. The closing moments in the season where Candace appeared was a real surprising ending, and it did a great job at showing us that she was still alive, which provided a cool twist. Number 2, Season 2. Coming in second place is the second season of the show. I thought Season 2 was when the show started to fully get in its stride, and it was also where the infamous love interest, Quinn, was first introduced to us, and we saw her being revealed to be a Joe-type character and playing him like how he used to play everybody else. Ellie and Delilah are probably my 2 favourite side characters that have ever been featured in the show, and the death of Delilah was one that I really felt. Having Candace also integrating herself back into Joe's life whilst looking to take him down whilst also being with 40 connected both arms of the story well, and there was almost a battle on all fronts for Joe. We got to see the compassionate side to Joe again in this season with him looking out for Ellie, and this was of the era in the show where there was always somebody that Joe was trying to champion. I am disappointed that Delilah's death wasn't mentioned in Season 5, and also that Ellie never returned, because it feels like one that would have definitely been worth bringing to the forefront because they were both 2 fan favourite characters. We also saw compassion and trust in Joe with the fact that he let Will Blenheim free from the cage, and his intel and tech man was born out of letting him go. It just felt like there was so much going on in this season of the show, and the eventful, gripping nature of it paired with the solid performances and the introduction of Quinn is what cements it towards the top. It was formerly my favourite season, but it's now dropped to second with time. Number 1, Season 3. The season that I think is the strongest in the entirety of the show, and the one that I look back the most fondly on is Season 3. Before Season 3 was released, Season 2 was genuinely peak you, and it was my favourite, but as time has gone on, I now think that Season 3 feels like when the show really hit its peak. That was where we saw Quinn being the fiercest rival that Joe has ever seen, and I think we had the best finale that the show has ever seen too. That entire showdown between Love and Joe in their home with Joe outsmarting her when it felt like she was on the cusp of killing him, only to meet her demise herself. It was just perfect. Even with Taylor Swift and Bon Iver's Exile playing, it was a phenomenal final scene and I've watched it back so many times. I also thought the romance that blossomed with Joe and Marienne was probably the last strong one that the show had. This season didn't actually have that many kills carried out by Joe, and I think that's another reason why it also made it good. Yeah, he killed Ryan, but he got the ultimate kill, which was Quinn, and it was such a significant one. I think this season also had some of the best interactions between Joe and a love interest as well. Joe and Love were perfect for each other in a sinister way, and that was truly when the show was at its best. The deterioration of Love's mind and Joe and Love's marriage was at the heart of the season, and I thought that making that the heartbeat of the show was the right direction for it to go in. It was a bold move killing Love, but it was definitely the right move for the show to make. The environment of Joe and Love being in the suburbs was a major change for it, and having the dynamic of the being in each other's pockets and nosy neighbours was also a good approach. It was fresh and also relatable for people that have lived in the suburbs before. For me, Season 3 was the pinnacle of the show, and it's the season that I think of most when I think of You. You has been a great show on Netflix, and one that has been a staple on the platform. Joe Goldberg has been a great modern-day villain, and witnessing his downfall in the most appropriate way possible is something that felt poetic. I can understand why it's caused some division, because there were a few gaps, but I do think the show ended at the right time because, in my opinion, it did peak in around the 2nd or 3rd season. So, there you have it, every season of You ranked. If you want to see Season 5 of You being broken down, then I've put the video below. And also, if you want to see Joe Goldberg's entire kill count, then that's there as well. What's your favourite season of the show? Share your thoughts in the comments. As always, thanks for tuning into the video, and I'll see you in the next one.